What is going on, guys? My name is Innocent Mustard, and today basically I'm just going to be talking for a while because today I found out the storyline to the Black Ops and World at War Zombies, and I just thought it was such a great storyline that I wanted to go through it with you guys and just talk about it because I think it's one of the best storylines in any game ever, and it's just really cool. So basically, well, let's go into it straight away. So we're going to take our scene back to just before World War II in Germany. And the Germans were completely obsessed with enhancing humanity so they could win the war. So there was a group called Group 935 that was created. And the leader of that group was a man called Dr. Maxis, and his second in command was Dr. Edward Richtofen, which most people will know from the games already. And basically, it was their job to, sort of use an element called 115, and that element could be used for a lot of things, like teleportation and mind control. So Dr. Maxis was tasked with trying to find out how to use it for teleportation, and Richtofen was tasked with how to use it for mind control. So Richtofen, whilst being tasked to do this, he found 4 people, not volunteers, because they weren't volunteers, but 4 people to test on, and they were Nikolai, the Japanese guy, Takeo, and 3 people, not 4. Nikolai, Takeo, and a Mexican who you'd never find out what his name is. And basically he tests on them, and Nikolai and Takeo are hard to break, so he doesn't... Well, it takes him longer to do that, but during these tests the Mexican is actually killed, and they bring in Dempsey. And basically, Dempsey, they're called the Super Soldiers, and they help they help Richtofen to reach a goal that he's been wanting for ages, but we'll talk about that later on. So basically, the story is so far, we've got Dr. Maxis trying to figure out how to teleport using the element 115, and Dr. Richtofen sort of trying to achieve mind control whilst actually he's created these super soldiers that he uses. And so basically, alongside, Richtofen realizes that he's actually more interested in teleportation. So he finds an assistant from Group 935, and they set to work trying to teleport things using 115. And Richtofen's a lot cleverer than Dr. Maxis, and he really realizes how to do it sooner than him, and he successfully manages to teleport a walnut. And then he goes to Dr. Maxis with his findings and is really excited, but Dr. Maxis gets angry and tells him that he should have stayed on the mind control thing, and he tells him to scrap all his research and go back to mind control. And this makes Richtofen really angry, and he's starting to low with Dr. Maxis. And then what's more, Group 935 originally were just scientists, and they had nothing to do with Nazi Germany at that time. But then Dr. Maxis got an offer from the Nazis, and they said, if you help us to make weapons of mass destruction, we will fund you. So Dr. Maxis was all like, oh yeah, let's do this, we can get loads of funding. But Richtofen didn't like that at all, and he said that they should take it just back to their research without getting involved in the war. But as Dr. Maxis was the leader, he made the decisions, and he decided to side with Nazi Germany. So then another thing that he was doing, Dr. Maxis was developing the Wonderwaffe, which, as you all will know, is one of the 2 wonder weapons that you use in World at War, the game. And so basically, while this is all going on, Richtofen is getting more and more angry at Dr. Maxis, and he's putting all his time into teleportation research, even though he's been told he's not allowed to. And then a few sort of months or years go by, and finally the teleportation device that Richtofen's been working on is ready to go ahead, and he basically decides he needs a human test subject, so he uses himself. And he gets teleported when he goes through it, not to the mainframe where he's supposed to be, but teleported away, actually onto Moon, but he doesn't know that. But he gets teleported to Moon, and into this chamber where there is a massive triangular cone type thing in the middle. And Richtofen has no idea what this is, but he gets drawn to it, and really it becomes his ambition to open this cone and see what's inside it, because it's radiating the element 115, and he can feel that in the air, and he's basically wants to get his hands on this. And then before he can do anything, he's teleported away to a jungle, and through the jungle he finds Shangri-La, the map, and that's where he decides to go. But he doesn't realise that he's actually in Shangri-La, because he just thinks he's in a random jungle. But while he's there, he finds a golden rod and I forgot what it's called, a disc type thing, that both of these things he's going to really need. So he picks them up and then journeys back to Group 935's base, which is actually called Deriz, or the Giant, as is translated to meaning. So then basically when he gets back, the assistant that helped teleport him is like, oh, what did you do? How did it go? But Richtofen's like, doesn't want to tell him anything, but he's now completely bent on destroying Dr. Maxis and researching what this cone is. And then he gets his opportunity to dispose of Maxis quite soon after that, because Dr. Maxis has finally realised how to teleport, and although the concentrations of element 115 are too big, and he decides he's going to need to test it with a semi-human or a more intelligent race. So he buys his daughter Samantha a dog, and then she raises the dog and loves the dog and everything, but then he uses that dog in the teleporter without her knowing, and basically that dog becomes the first hellhound. But while this is going on, while he's trying to teleport the dog and the dog's just getting twisted and transformed, Samantha, his daughter, runs in, and she says, no, what are you doing? And runs into the chamber with the dog. And Dr. Max is realising what he's done, runs in after her, and then they're in this chamber with a hellhound that's trying to kill them. And then Richtofen seals the door and keeps them in there with this hellhound, and says the words that are quite famous for him saying. He says, goodbye, Dr. Maxis, and teleports them away. And they actually get teleported to the moon, but just before they get teleported there, Richtofen's already sent two of his assistants up there to try and break open the pyramid, and they have no idea how to break open it, and they're starting to lose hope, the two assistants, until one of them kills a rat that's been messing around in their camp next to the pyramid, and the pyramid absorbs the rat's very soul. And then they think that they come back to Deriz and tell Richtofen their findings, that they've come to the conclusion that the pyramid is powered by life, like a life source. And so Richtofen gets a load of test subjects from prisoners of war and things like that, and he teleports them all up to Moon to be executed to give the pyramid power. And so basically they only need one more person to kill, and he decides that should be Maxis. So he teleports them up there, and Maxis escapes and is running around the moon, and Samantha's just there with really scared, curling up, rocking back and forth or whatever she's doing. You don't really know, but she's up there as well. And then the two assistants track down Dr. Maxis and take him next to the pyramid. And then when they kill the Dr. Maxis, the pyramid opens, and this thing inside the pyramid is called the Aether, which is basically like a cryogenic chamber, which means that whoever's inside there has utter, complete control over the element 115, so they can control all the zombies and control everything, basically. But they're stuck in there for however long it takes. And then when Dr. Maxis is killed and the pyramid opens, Samantha runs into the pyramid and she becomes master of all the zombies. And before they kill Dr. Maxis, he says these words, "kill them all," to Samantha, and meaning every last member of Group 935. So then basically what happens after that is Samantha goes absolutely rage on Richtofen, who's back down on Earth, sending all waves of undead to try and kill him. And meanwhile, he realizes what power you have when you're inside the Aether, and he basically wants to replace Samantha. And they go through all the maps, basically him and his super soldiers, which is Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takeo. And basically they're running through all the maps, gathering these things that he's lost, like the golden rod and everything. And when you play through all the maps until you get to basically the end of Deriz, what happens then for them to be transported into the future to Kino, what happens then is Dempsey's got his hands on a Wonderwaff, which is a gun powered by 115, the element, and then while they're fighting off zombies, they back into the teleporter, so they're inside the teleporter, and as it's teleporting them away, Dempsey shoots the Wonderwaff, so the two elements of 115 combining means they're not only teleported like away from somewhere, but they're teleported in time as well. So they get teleported to Kino de Toten, which means Theatre of the Dead in German, and they've also gone forward a few years. So basically you play through all of those maps until you get to Call of the Dead, and that map's very important because if you do the Easter egg, which is where you free all the members of that group with Richtofen, Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takeo, once you free all of them, you also give them the golden rod, which is what Richtofen needs. So then he's got one of the pieces that he needs to open the cone again, and finally he needs the last piece, which was the plate type thing that I mentioned when Richtofen first went to Shangri-La, and he's lost that, so you need to go journey back to Shangri-La, which is the map, and once you do the Easter egg there, you find the plate, and now Richtofen has everything he needs. So then they go back to Deriz, and they don't go back to Deriz, they go to Area 51, which is the US space station where they're supposed to have found alien life and everything. Then they go inside the teleporter there and get teleported onto Moon. And basically they find the pyramid and manage to crack it open using the life force from zombies and all the tools that he has. And the minute it opens, Richtofen's soul is swapped with Samantha's. So then Richtofen is now in control of all the zombies. But then Dr. Maxis' soul, that was trapped inside the pyramid, now comes out and talks to the remaining members of the team, which is now Samantha, Nikolai, Dempsey, and Takeo, and he tells them to destroy Earth, otherwise Richtofen's plans will go ahead and there'll be more damage done to Earth than if it was just nuked. So then you have to do another Easter egg called the Big Bang Theory, which is basically just where you nuke Earth. And that's what brings us on to now the new Call of Duty, which is Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And inside that, obviously if you play the zombies gameplay, everything is burning. And that's because the world has been nuked. So basically, Richtofen's in complete control of the zombies, and he is communicating to all the people still on Earth to follow out his tasks as well, using the mind control techniques that he learnt when he was still a member of Group 935. And so that's basically where our story ends. They're back on Earth, and Richtofen is using mind control to achieve his ends on using humans on Earth. But then Dr. Maxis's soul still lives on in Moon, and he's trying to control some of the humans to fight against Richtofen. And that's basically where it is. So I thought this was a great story. It can go anywhere now, because obviously I hope in a future game they'll bring back Nikolai, Dempsey, Takeo again, because they were great characters and everybody loved them, and they were the original people who you played as within the games, and they're great.